Okay, so welcome to anyone watching this later. My name is Lisa Virtue. I'm an international career coach and job search strategist. I help people around the world find and land their ideal jobs. And today I am thrilled to kick off our female mentor conversations. And as happens as a small business owner, of course, there was a glitch the first day. So we worked through that and I learned my lesson. Which is what we do in our careers, right? So
Yes.
nobody's perfect. But I am thrilled to invite Tara Bianca here. She's a holistic health practitioner, 20 years of doing this work. And it is such impactful work. My former life, the first 20 years of my career was in the wellness industry. So
Wow.
I know how important this work is and how we need to really embrace it in our daily lives, especially when you're going through something so stressful like a job search.
Definitely.
So, Tara, I'm going to kick it off to you. One of the reasons we have these conversations is to help women that are early in their careers. That can be, demographically younger women. It can also be women in transition. And all of this information is also very helpful for men. But
Yes.
my primary focus is to give women a platform to have a voice. And I think that a lot of male advocates, I'm just so thrilled that they are also looking to women as mentors. So I think that's beautiful. And we have a lot to learn from each other. And I talk to women every day that have a hard time finding female mentors, and especially around the pandemic where we've all gone virtual, we're isolated. Also, a lot of women have left the workforce for a variety of reasons as caregivers. And so opening up this platform, letting us talk about it and come together and say, okay, Tara, what did you learn early in your career that you would love to pass on and share is going to be my first question.
Wow.
Why don't you tell us how you got here? How did you start being a health practitioner, and in particular, breath work and meditation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's obviously been a long journey. I actually grew up pretty interested in health and wellness from a kid. My father was a gym coach, a PE teacher, and we were all really athletic as kids. And then there were also some health challenges in the family. There's a particular line of blood cancer that runs in my family, unfortunately, some leukemia. And there's also some musculoskeletal stuff that really run in our genetics. And so from a young age, my mom and my grandmother were big on food healing. Like, what can we change in our diets and how we are kind of ingesting all these aspects from the world to create the most optimal health, especially in the face of these different challenges that we all face, whether it's physical, mental, psychological, emotional. And so it was really impressed upon me as a young girl, health, fitness, nutrition. And sort of always had that mindset. I was a dancer, I was a gymnast, I was really into physical wellness. And then when I was about 16, I had my first bout of my first kind of health crisis. I really started to develop horrible digestive issues, which are such an epidemic now, obviously, and this was before we were really talking openly about the microbiome and all these different things that we can do for gut health. It wasn't in the forefront of anyone's brain. Doctors didn't know what to do with me. And I was sort of developing almost like a certain level of autoimmune type symptoms where it was becoming very debilitating very quickly. And so I definitely had some challenges with our modern medical system. It wasn't serving me the way that I had hoped it would and how I had counted on it doing. And so that's really was the initial driver from that age of 16 that drove me into, I need to find answers for myself and really getting more into holistic health. And so I did have a few odds and end jobs going through university, but by the time it was about 24, 25 was when I really made the decision to make it a career. And so what was my vector into that? I started off doing a lot of massage therapy, therapeutic bodywork techniques. I was a fitness instructor for a long time, and I used to do some health coaching and nutrition work. But what was always on the periphery for me, I've studied so many different modalities and I've investigated so many things, but on the periphery was always this thing about breathing. I had so many instructors constantly like whispering it in my ear. I used to do a lot of yoga and Tai Chi, and I knew there was something to it. And in my studies with the human body, looking at the anatomy, the physiology, I have a lot of teachers that really focus in on the diaphragms of the body, right? And so I always knew it was important and I was always playing with it, but I still didn't quite have the combination of the how and the why. And I didn't really know how to apply it to my clientele in a meaningful way. And so it's really only in the last, I'd say, 5 to 6 years where I really started to get the answers. And I've kind of made this shift now from doing more manual therapy focused work to really focusing in on breath coaching and breathing re-education with my clients. And this shift during COVID to more online work with people is really what forced that. In March of 2020, I actually had to shut down my in-person practice completely, like so many of us did. And one of the things that I've learned along the way is that even in the face of disaster, sometimes it's the biggest blessing, even when it doesn't necessarily feel like it in the moment. I've really learned in my life now, because I've had enough positive feedback around it, that even when the world around me seems like it's falling apart and crumbling and everything is going wrong, I truly believe, and it sounds like such a cliche, that the world is happening for me and not to me. And just that shift in perception, that shift in my internal environment, how I frame the events that are happening around me has changed everything. So even when I seem to have lost everything in 2020, I really felt like, oh, this is the moment to finally take my business to the next level and really expand globally and potentially reach so many more people than I was ever able to do in my private little practice in Manhattan. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn along the way. And I think it really serves all of us as we are going through this career building process to really focus on shifting the internal environment. What can we do in terms of working on ourself, our thoughts, our emotions, our judgments about what we're experiencing, so that it serves us the best to propel us forward, as opposed to holding us back and keeping us stuck in fear. I think it's so meaningful.
I can definitely relate. Had a major shift in my career also.
Yes.
And always going back to my why and my purpose, and knowing that we can't predict the future. We don't know how it will look, but as long as we continue to be focused, we can absolutely make something out of a bad situation, right? Yeah.
100%.
Definitely.
Yep.
One thing I've been talking to my clients a lot about is, and especially in this time with the pandemic, because so many things are out of people's hands and not their choice, it becomes a grieving process. So thinking about the grief process, and in particular, if you go for a job, you thought you got that job, you're like living it in your brain, right? You're there, you're researching, you're planning, and then you don't even hear back.
Yep.
It's so devastating. It's such
Devastating.
a hit to our ego, of course.
Yeah.
And then also, allowing ourselves to grieve, I think, is something that a lot of people don't talk about. It's like, let's just change your mindset, just keep moving, keep going. What advice do you have for those job seekers when they're hitting that stage and they're having a really hard time? And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, don't tell me to think positively one more time. What can they do? What can they do maybe instead?
So I'm 100% with you. I really believe in the power of allowing the emotions to rise up and experience them fully, so that we can kind of be done with them. It sort of closes the loop. It sort of closes the cycle. I don't really believe so much anymore in this idea of negative emotions and positive emotions. You're just, again, responding to the environment around you, right? So I agree with you. It's good to go through that grieving process. What I do with my clients now a lot, I really am focused on breathing so much with them. And the reason that I like breathing as a self-care tool so much is that it's not about positive psychology. This is something that really creates a physiological shift in your body. Breathing is completely accessible to everybody, totally free. You have access to it at all times of day. And for me, that's very empowering, because in this moment of grief, of disappointment, of frustration, of anger, can I decide that I want to do something nourishing for myself in this moment anyway, just to kind of soothe my wounds, and it doesn't mean changing my mindset or feeling immediate gratitude that I didn't get the job or that I never heard back. It's not about that. It's more about, okay, but am I going to let this destroy me, or can I still take care of myself in this moment where I'm feeling a little bit down? So I think that's really the most important thing, is kind of cultivating a little bit more awareness. Like, okay, it's okay that I'm feeling this way. I'm going to allow myself to feel this, but also I don't want to feel this way forever. What are some tools that I can access on my own that I can use to sort of self-soothe, I think, is the way to go about it.
That sounds fantastic. So one thing I heard as kind of a mentorship point that you made was really focusing on that internal work throughout your career. Can you expand on that a little bit? Is there any story you want to share with women out there? Maybe there's gender bias or something you experienced as a major shift, and what you learned from that with your career?
Sure. Um, I mean, in terms of gender bias, it's so interesting, actually, Lisa. I think I'm unusual, and I'll probably be unusual as one of your guests that comes on, but maybe we can talk about it a little bit just to offer up another side of the story. Maybe you know from your background in holistic wellness, but still, even though there's a lot of men in this particular workforce, holistic health is still overwhelmingly a female dominant profession. And all of those careers, massage therapy, therapeutic body work, health coaching, nutritionists, yes, there are men, but the bias actually works in our favor in this particular industry. In terms of, if you don't want to work for yourself, if you're looking to be hired, there's actually a lot of preference for female therapists, female nutritionists, female fitness instructors. And I think that is because, one way or the other, females still, I think, in the sort of more mainstream societal viewpoint, we think of females as naturally more nurturing and more nourishing people, and so overwhelmingly the consumers want to experience a female therapist. Females would prefer a female and males would prefer a female. There's something about that particular gender dynamic that really happens to work in my favor in this particular industry. So I know that's not the answer you were looking for, but I was thinking about this question a little bit last night because I know this is important as a part of our female mentorship program. And so what's interesting to me is that in the health and wellness arena, is that still, though, when you start to ask, okay, well, who are the big gurus in this space? Who are the big mentors in this space? Who are the most famous teachers? Who have the trademarked modalities, the trademark techniques? Who are really capitalizing on this work? And it's always a man, always across the board. And I always liken this to something like, at home, I think still more females do some of the domestic work, including cooking. But if you look at who the most famous chefs are, they're always males, right? And so this is also happening in the health and wellness industry, where somehow that male figure is still able to capitalize more on all this information that we're all using and disseminating daily to our clients. And so it's interesting to me because whenever you're then in the minority, or whenever you're in more of a sort of marginalized demographic, but the hard part is always, well, I don't have someone to model, right? There's no one up above me who represents my values exactly, who looks like me exactly, who has my particular perspective on life. So how am I ever going to get there? And, it took a lot of coaching on my part too. I've had coaches throughout my career, and I've had to do a lot of the work, which is such a horrible and meaningful statement to say, but it really does require a lot of internal discipline to face these self-limiting beliefs that you have, really come to grips with, why do I have this belief? Where is it coming from? Did I generate it myself? Did society put this on me? Really kind of trying to get back to the root source of, why do I believe what I believe? And now that I have some awareness of where this came from, can I shift it? Do I need to hold on to this anymore? Or am I limiting my perspective so much that I'm not even seeing that there are role models who look like me, who are females in the space, who are doing amazing things? And am I able to then follow that path as opposed to focusing on this path that doesn't seem to suit me and keeps me small and keeps me in fear and prevents me from even trying, because I'm like, oh, well, clearly this is just a male dominant game. How am I ever going to get ahead? So I think it's really trying to take a more open visual perspective. I think a lot of times, our beliefs shape so much what information we'll even take in with our senses. And so it's more about, can I stay a little bit more open, as opposed to allowing myself to only see these things and get frustrated when I only see those things, and keep perpetuating this myth that only men get ahead, only men are leaders in this space. Can I start to see, well, no, that can't be true, and really seek out other alternatives? Who can I model? Because I want to take this to the next level, and what I'm seeing right now is not working for me. So I think really seeking out for yourself, doing more research. Who can I model? Which path can I follow to help me get to that next level? I don't know if that's helpful, but
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you hit on such a nerve right now with the fact that the workforce, the pandemic lockdown and the way that the workforce was affected. Yes, one of the reasons the statistics is so high for women that have left the workforce or were impacted was because historically, stereotypically, they are in those industries that were caused to shut down and caused lockdown.
Right.
And I love what you're talking about as far as the modeling and who do you see in the space that represents you. We know that with every marginalized group that is so important. And so we're talking about the largest marginalized group, women, right? And then you can go from there and find even more marginalized groups within women. But just women in general still have, we have a long way to go to support one another.
For sure.
And we can't take that for granted. Again, I talk to so many women, and yes, the wellness space I do think is such a special place. And that's why I was there for 20 years. I can completely relate, where it is very nurturing and people do want the best for you. And that's why they go into that space. And now with coaching, very similar for me.
Yes.
It can be nurturing. It's very one-on-one. That's where the magic happens, where people, you can go online, you can watch this session, learn all you want, but then when you go to apply it on a daily basis for yourself, having someone to support you and help you and bounce that off, there's so much impact and power to that, and having someone hold space for you.
Huge. Yeah, it's everything, in terms of holding. I talk about this every time I talk about, I know we're going to get to breathing, but any holistic practitioner or therapist or coach, that's really their job, right? They can't do it for you. What they are doing is holding a safe and precious space for you where you can really flourish, where you can in my case, get into a mode where you can finally heal yourself, right? It's really about empowering those individuals to realize, oh, I'm in the driver's seat. I can do this on my own. I don't need to rely on this external thing. And so as coaches, therapists, and practitioners, we're really there for you guys just to be guidance, and also to maybe offer some past experience that is relevant to what you are going through now. But it's still up to you, and you can totally do it. I mean, we all have that power to shift hugely, really transformatively.
I love that. And it sounds like you share some similar values to me, where there is 3 lanes that we can play. There's the coach, which is you help someone find it within themselves and pull it forward. Then there's the consultant. You're telling them, these are the best practices. If I was you, here's what I would do. Here's what my clients have done, right? So that's that consultant piece. I recommend you do X, Y, Z. And then there's mentor, which we're talking about today. And that's, well, if you do want to know about my past experience, I'm happy to share that. A lot of coaches separate it so much. They don't want to blur the lines, or that's just, that's who they are. I blur the lines all the time because it's what my clients need at the moment. And so I make sure to check in and say, for instance, would you like to hear my story? I do have an experience with this. Would you like to? And 10 times out of 10, they're like, yes, that's one of the reasons I'm working with you. Right. I want to hear your experience. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Sharing is so important. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when someone goes to find the right coach for them, I think that's really important, because as a client, you also should come to the relationship understanding what you want and being really clear. Because if you're like, no, I don't want to hear about your story, let's just focus on me, the coach will be fine if you tell them that. Right?
100%. Yes. Yeah. The whole point of our work is to be client-centered, right? So it's really about us just being there and being a vessel for you guys to figure out what you need, really, and to be of service the best that we can. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, that's great. Okay, let's shift to breath work. I know I could use some good breathing after messing up the link this morning and all sorts of fun. I love to geek out on the science behind the practice.
Okay.
So if you don't mind sharing anything, I know breathing through your nose, there's been studies showing that has more impact mentally than breathing through your mouth. But if there's any examples like that or shares you have as far as the science, as we kick off, I'm going to hand it over to you, and why don't you just lead us through it?
Okay, so when I am first introducing people to breathing, I actually think the easiest route in is by talking about the nervous system. And I think this is going to be most relevant for you guys who are really concerned about managing your anxiety and your stress during the process of searching for a job, because anxiety and stress is a condition of our nervous system. And we are going to learn how to use our breathing to help to start to control the nervous system response so that we can better manage the stress and anxiety we're feeling. So when I'm teaching my students about breathing, I always say, okay, guys, as we are conditioning the breathing, what we're really doing is conditioning the nervous system. And related to what I was speaking to you about in the beginning, Lisa, I like to say that the condition of your nervous system at any given moment during the day really shapes and determines the perception of the world around you, of your environment around you, of the people around you. So this is really tied into what we were speaking about earlier about the internal environment and controlling your internal environment. So what do I mean by that? So every thought that we have, every emotion we have, every judgment we make, it is causing a physiological response in the body. It causes this cascade of physiological reactions in the body. So how is this relevant to our job searching process or our career building process or even our networking process, how we're interacting with people? If you have an anxious thought, all of a sudden that starts to precipitate into many anxious thoughts, right? It starts recruiting all these different synapses. You're all over the place in your mind. You're not in your body at all. And then what that starts to do, one of the first things that it triggers in this physiological cascade of events is that your heart rate starts to elevate, your breathing rate starts to elevate. And what typically happens is your breathing either does one of two things. It usually either shuts down completely, you start holding your breath, or it gets really fast, it gets really shallow, it gets really upper chest. And so when we're breathing fast and shallow and upper chest, this further feeds back into our nervous system that we are not safe, that the conditions around us are not safe. There's something threatening, and it starts to stimulate our sympathetic response, which is our fight or flight response. So this is saying, oh, I have something in this environment is making me have to run, or something in this environment is making me go into a guarded protective posture where I feel like I have to defend myself, or I feel like I have to run and hide. And so now what started as an anxious thought now has precipitated into this full body experience. And how do you think you are going to engage with the people around you if you're stuck in this massive fight or flight response? You're not going to be able to get enough oxygen to your brain, which means you're not going to have mental clarity. You're not going to be able to focus. You're not going to be able to concentrate. You won't be persuasive or effective when choosing your words because you're not able to get clear in your mind what you're even trying to convey. Then also you're going to see the people potentially interviewing you or the other people that you're potentially in competition for with this job as a threat, something dangerous, something that you have to be reactive to, and maybe inappropriately reactive to. So it's creating this entire environment, which is going to affect your performance. And it's really going to affect your resiliency and your adaptability in that situation. So this is setting you up to not have a great experience necessarily. So now what can we do about this? You know, step one is to always have the awareness, right? So especially if you've been going on a lot of interviews or you've been networking a lot and you notice, wow, I always have this social anxiety piece that really gets me down, that always affects how I quote unquote perform or sort of showcase myself and my skill set. And I feel like I could be doing so much better. What can I do about it? Well, once you notice that your breathing is dramatically changing in those moments and getting very fast and shallow and inefficient, is that you can use your breathing to hack into your nervous system and change the entire internal environment. So I'm in this situation, I have the anxious thought, my breathing is really speeding up, I feel this stress response come on, but I've been training myself to slow down my breath, to deepen my breath. And so if you are taking slow, deep, full diaphragmatic breaths, it's literally impossible to maintain this crazy, anxious, hyper-facilitated, stressful state because they're incompatible. Slow, deep breathing immediately starts to stimulate what we call your parasympathetic response. That's your rest and digest. That's your rest and recovery. That's your down regulation. That's your clear, focused thinking. So when you're in that state, what I train people to do is to really get into their body, get into their breath. You don't need to run to a corner and lie down to do this. You could do it seated, you could do it standing, you could do it walking around the block, whatever you need to do. It's important to know how to down-regulate your breathing in any moment during every activity of your day. And so the main thing that I would love to be able to just demonstrate with you guys today at some point, Lisa, you tell me if it's okay to do that, is that we're going to just practice slowing down the breath. And because we have limited time today, the first cadence that I love to give people is what we call a slightly extended exhale cadence. So we're going to practice breathing in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 6. So getting to the science of that a little bit more so people really understand what's happening is that when we slightly extend our exhale, the exhale is more associated with stimulating the parasympathetic response in the body. So when you inhale, that's naturally stimulating a little bit more of a sympathetic response. And when you exhale, that is the relaxation component of the breath cycle. This is the thing that is stimulating your vagus nerve. Maybe some of you have heard of your vagus nerve, and this starts to stimulate that relaxation response. So whenever in doubt, you always want to try to extend your exhale a little bit more than your inhale to help to down-regulate your nervous system faster, to help to slow down your heart rate, slow down your breathing, and find that calm, centered, focused space in your mind. And so what happens when we're able to shift the breathing and then shift the whole nervous system? Well, now we're a totally different person, right? We're coming into that interview or that job-related event as a totally different personality. We no longer are seeing the people around us as our competition or as threatening or as dangerous. We now perceive this space as a safe space to explore and express ourselves. And so that's a totally different game. When you're in that mindset now and you have that internal environment, you're making different decisions, you're taking different actions. It's totally different behavior. And so this is a really invaluable tool to have. And I think it's so powerful. And again, the breathing is so amazing because everyone has a diaphragm. It's totally accessible any time of day. It's totally free and it's very powerful. It works fast. So I don't know, Lisa, do you want to ask more questions about that? Or
No, I think I'm going to change my view. I think we're ready. I'm ready.
Okay.
I just checked and we have like 6 people that found the new link. So welcome to our viewers. I also want to remind anyone watching right now that if you subscribe to the channel, you can drop any questions. So for instance, if Tara brought up some science and you're curious about that, or you've tried a breathing practice yourself and you have a question about it, drop it in the chat. I'll keep my eye on it after the breathing exercise because I'm going to do it with them.
Well, tell me about timing. So do you think 5 minutes would be a good amount of time for everyone? Yeah,
5 minutes would be perfect.
Okay, excellent. So anyone who's joining us, just go ahead and take a seat. And then if you feel safe doing so, I always invite people to close their eyes just so you can really connect into your body. And now before I actually start guiding the breath practice, I want to just scan through your body with you and highlight a few key points. So whenever we're down regulating the breathing, I'm going to ask you to focus on nasal breathing completely. That means breathing in quietly and gently in through your nose and breathing out quietly and gently out through your nose. And I'm going to ask that you actually keep your lips gently sealed and release as much tension as you can in your jaw. So really relaxing the mouth. And then if it's available to you, also take the tip of your tongue and make gentle contact on the roof of your mouth, right behind your top teeth without actually touching your teeth. And now just start to really connect to your breathing. Bring all of your attention to this gentle, quiet breath in through your nose and out through your nose. And before we even start to add a cadence, I just want you to notice, where do you feel that breath moving in your body? Do you feel your ribs expanding? Do you feel some gentle movement in the belly? The deeper you can draw the breath into your body, the more effective gas exchange will be, the more effective the oxygen uptake will be, the more energized you will be. So now we're going to go for about 4 or 5 minutes into a 4-6 cadence. This is to help down-regulate the nervous system and activate more of a parasympathetic rest and recovery response in the body. I'm going to count for us the whole time. You don't have to try to breathe in and out completely. Keep the breath gentle, quiet, easy. Here we go. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Good. And then just pausing for a moment and just noticing what you feel. And I think the most powerful thing with breathing is seeing that even in 4 or 5 minutes, how much did my internal environment change? Do I feel calmer? Do I feel a little bit more mentally clear? In this case, you might even feel sleepy. If you're stuck in a stress response all the time and you never come down from it, this might actually knock you out a little bit. And it's actually a very nice breathing cadence for preparing for sleep as well. But Lisa, feel free to jump in.
Love it. I definitely feel more focused.
Great. Yeah. I think the main takeaway is that it doesn't take a lot of time. You know, people are afraid to take on new practices, new habits, because it's another thing to add to the to-do list. And it's like, oh my God, yeah, I know I just need 5 minutes to do it, but I need 5 minutes to do about 5,000 things, right? So usually when I teach people breathing, I like to incorporate it as much as possible into their daily activities. So while you're driving, while you're sitting at your computer, working on your resume or job hunting, can you just have a little bit more awareness, drop into your body once in a while and just take 2, 3, 4 minutes. And even when your eyes are engaged in something mentally, can I still think about what my breathing is doing? Can I still have some control over what's going on with my nervous system? Because again, it's going to shift your perception. It's also going to keep this visual field, this field of perception more open. Which is always good. You want to be able to take in unanticipated outcomes, unanticipated options that might show up and crop up in your world.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Tara.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions. So I think what we'll do is because everyone's asleep. No, I'm just kidding. It's because we're very thorough. And, hopefully people will take away just a nice reminder as well that breath work is so impactful in life,
Mhm.
in our day to day. And like you mentioned, and I'm assuming your recommendation is anytime we need it, right? Anytime that we want to practice is a good time.
Anytime is a good time. Yeah. In fact, I always recommend you kind of drop into that breathing awareness. Lots of small sessions throughout the day is way better than taking, 20 minutes to an hour, once a week. Lots of small, just, okay, I'm going to think about my breathing for the next minute and then move on and do something else and then come back to it. It just starts to set a new habit for you, which is going to, those small changes really add up over time.
Absolutely. Great. Well, I'm going to share my screen so we can show everybody how to get in touch with you.
Okay, great.
And I'm just showing the raw PowerPoint.
Yeah.
We don't want any more glitches. So Tara, do you want to talk about you have a 6-day challenge that everyone is welcome to do, and anything else you want to share with how can people get a hold of you if breath work is on their mind?
Yes. So firstly, that I have a free offering on my website. It's called the Breath Basics 6-Day Challenge. And if this little 5-minute exercise was interesting to you guys, this is such an awesome 6-day challenge. You get access to one 15-minute video tutorial each day. It's super manageable to fit into a busy schedule. We talk about a different breathing technique, what it is, why it's important, and how to do it, as well as a 5-minute guided practice each day for 6 days. So you can grab that at the link that you see on your screen, belighttt.com/6 days. And then I do a lot of free educational tutorials and also free guided breath sessions on my YouTube channel. So you can check that out at that link, youtube.com/belighttt. And then my main website, I have a lot of freebies there and a lot of different offerings. You can always check that out as well.
Wonderful. Yes. 3 T's.
3 T, because my full company's name is Be Light Transformative Therapy. Everyone asks why 3 T's, and that is why. So talking about mentorship, I would say that a lesson that I learned is pick an appropriate URL when you're deciding to start your business, because I do have a tricky time articulating this one for people, but I'm kind of in it and committed to it at this point.
I completely hear you. I totally understand. That's a great segue too. I'll just share my links really quick as well. Her Career Studio was available. So hercareerstudio.com is affordable coaching for women who are, like I said earlier, in transition, early in their careers, looking to have a meaningful, impactful career so they don't wake up as an 85-year-old woman with regret. So this is a place where you can access that executive level coaching before you become an executive. A lot of women don't do coaching because they simply cannot afford it. And so I'm bringing that hopefully to the masses. It will be an intimate community. Not a lot of women will be allowed to join because we don't want it to get watered down. Like we were mentioning earlier, that one-on-one and having space for you is so important. So I'm hoping to have as many women join as possible, and then we'll limit the registrations. I also mentioned I work with men and women. So Lisa Virtue Coaching is where you can find my other services. And that is around the job search, career strategy, and everything in between. So we'll bring more of these conversations to you. Please like and subscribe the channel. Make sure that you are linked in on LinkedIn. Tara and I are both happy to connect with you. So send us a connection request and drop us a message if you have any other questions. Anything
Awesome.
else, Tara, you'd like to share?
I think that's it, but I want to thank you so much for having me come on and be part of this conversation. I really appreciate it. I hope it's meaningful for your audience.
Yes, thank you so much. I will send you the link afterwards. We can get the proper link to our audiences. And now I've learned my lesson, so that won't happen again. But thank you so much, and namaste. Have a great day, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yep.